my dear Iranian friends. The members of the Friends of a Free Iran group from different political groups in the European Parliament have been campaigning for the respect of democracy and human rights in Iran for many years. In recent weeks, many of you, especially among young people, have demonstrated to demand a democratic change in your country. Following your demonstration in more than 100 cities, the regime has reacted with an unacceptable brutality. The regime itself acknowledged that more than 3,000 people have been arrested since the beginning of the uprisings. 90% of the detainees were under 25 years of age. More dramatic, dozens of protesters were killed in the street. Amnesty International has called to investigate reports that at least 5 demonstrators have died in custody. We cannot be silent in the face of such brutality. We call for the immediate release of all detainees who have been arrested arbitrarily. We hold the Iranian regime accountable for the slaughter and mass arrest of defenseless protesters. We condemn the blocking of the internet and social media, which limits the Iranian people's freedom of expression. The Iranian people aspire to have more democracy. He has the right to express it freely. We will continue to support the legitimate aspiration of freedom and democracy of the Iranian people.
Dear friends, Iranian people have said their word. They have risen against oppression, against injustice, and now it's time for regime change. We should support them. It is most important. It's up to Europe now to take a very clear stand, siding with people, not with a regime who has bloody hands, who have been repressing their own people, who have advanced terrorism across the Middle East, and who have cheated their partners in Europe. I appeal to High Representative Mogherini to really stand up for Iranian democracy and ask that people who have been arrested should be freed, that their needs should be supported, that internet clampdown has to be removed. But first of all, we need to have solidarity with the people as such. They have justified claims. Regime change is there, and now it's a moment to support it.
I'd like to send a message to the brave people of Iran, whom we've seen protesting these days all over the country for freedom and democracy. We admire your bravery. You are risking your lives to get your country back from the religious dictatorship. I've met the Iranian opposition leader, Mariam Rajavi, and I support her call to bring the perpetrators of these crimes committed by the Iranian regime to international tribunals. Every people has the right to be free. This is a right that no one can take away from you. This medieval regime does not belong to our era. We are with you. We support your struggle, and we are sure you will win.
I salute the people of Iran for standing up against dictatorship. As elected politicians, we must always put human rights and democratic principles on top of our priorities when we deal with countries like Iran. People of Iran have declared they don't want to live under tyranny. They don't believe in the moderate, hardline game anymore. They want a democratic change. We had invited Iranian opposition leader, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, to the European Parliament a few weeks ago. Her analysis proved to be very correct now that we see the people rising up in Iran. We insist that the European Union must condemn the regime for arresting and killing the people who are protesting for their rights. We must condition further relations with Iran to the release of all arrested demonstrators. We must bring the regime officials who committed these crimes to the International Court. We are with you. Keep up the struggle for a free Iran.
Dear friends, I have followed your great uprising against the mullahs from the very first day in the city of Mashhad, which was spread to over 130 cities all over Iran. Your protests for social justice, for freedom, and for the downfall of this religious theocracy has shaken the whole world. Everybody has no doubts that this is a very weak and fragile regime. I am very concerned about the protesters who have been arrested. Amnesty International has reported that several of those who were arrested have been killed in prison. This is outrageous. The Iranian regime has openly called for the execution of members and supporters of the PMOI and the movement under the leadership of Mrs. Rajabi. We must tell the regime that this is unacceptable. And we share the grief of the families of those protesters who were murdered in the streets. Be sure that many members of the European Parliament support you and are with you in this struggle until your final victory. Long live a free Iran.